Nope.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, brought to you by RJ Productions and Fish Entertainment Inc. GHOTI, that's the only way to spell fish.
Hey.
It's tonight's show, Red vs. Green!
And obviously red. So, in response to Ray's first question, or Green's first question as the case may be, let's start off with a little bit about me. You know a little bit about Ray, so how did I grow up? I'm a little bit older than Ray, so the TV shows and cartoons that I grew up with during the 70s and 80s were much more innocent, I believe. A little bit more fun. I grew up with a lot of Hanna-Barbera and Warner Brothers cartoons. Ignoring the cartoon violence involved in said cartoons, they're very much an extended slapstick variety of comedy. I also grew up with Super Friends, He-Man, Master of the Universe, that sort of thing. I grew up in Guildford, which was at the time a pretty good town, a nice little town. Mum and Dad were pretty good for me. Dad worked hard. I didn't really get to see a lot of him or do much with him. Occasionally jump in the truck with my own little mini thermos and bucket of lunch that Mum would make me. But I was generally not wanting for many things. Like I got toys, I had comics, did have to work for them a bit or do my chores or whatever, but I never really had anything withheld from me. So it was a good childhood. It was pretty good. I got into comics at an early age. I started with the Richie Riches, all the Harvey comics, Casper the Friendly Ghost and Hot Stuff. Loved those guys. Some of the early Disney comics like Donald Duck, his adventures. Then I moved on to some of the superhero stuff. In fact, one of the first superhero comics I've put my hands on and really got me into the thing was the DC Universe Crisis on Infinite Earths, which was a fantastic comic. I liked Superman and Spider-Man and little bits and pieces here and there, but that really got me into it because it was a fantastic story involving every comic character I could possibly have thought of at the time in the DCU. And that was just mind-blowing for me. I really enjoyed that, so I started getting into comics, going to the back and flipping through, finding the Mile High Comics Club, getting their catalogue and ordering things from them that were interesting. This was far before the internet. It was all by mail order. So I'd go through the catalogue, select what I wanted, save up my money, mail them off, and get all these interesting comics. And sometimes I'd find things that were a little bit eclectic, that were probably on the independent shelves these days, but back in the day, there was a lot of comic shops, if any. I think there may be two, The Land Beyond Beyond and Comic Kingdom, before we had King's Comics in the Phantom Zone. But yeah, they were all the independent type things, and so I picked up some very interesting titles as well, just because I was exploring comics for the first time. It was fantastic. That really got my creativity spurred and led to my current comics and creative processes today. So I had a lot of interesting influences back in the day when I was growing up. And for me, when I actually originally put up this question that Ray responded to in episode 1 of Hero, I wanted just a general hero, what you thought of as your own personal hero. It could have been taken any way, he took it that way. For me, my response was my personal hero, Christopher Reeve, and not just because he was Superman in the original Superman the movie, but in the interim years, especially after his accident before he died, he was just a powerful, motivated human being and quite heroic in my eyes, I thought. Response to question, is society growing darker? My opinion of said, is society growing darker question. Okay, well, Ray's touched on the sexuality in comics and currently the New 52 of DC, how they've really gone from kiddie-friendly to, well, a more adult response. Some of the things they've done have been actually reasonably intelligent. I'm surprised they didn't do it beforehand, but it was an iconic canon thing with Superman and Lois Lane, etc., etc. The current version has Superman and Wonder Woman getting together, and that makes sense. It does really make sense, especially in the context that they've written it. Starfire has become a non-teenage friendly character in its entirety. She's probably the most sexualized and sexually active character in the DCU currently. Sexualization of relationships. It's really sadly disappointing in this day and age that we haven't moved past all this crap, and we don't sexualize women, or for that matter, have strange ideas around relationships. We still do. One day we'll wake up, hopefully not too late, and get on top of all this. And the message in Frozen, Ray thought it was a little bit of a darker message. I quite got the message in Frozen. I thought it was very good to be able to leave behind all the things that you've been hiding from people, and be yourself without having to hide who you are. Ignoring the fact that the gay and lesbian community has really taken on board as a coming out message. So in general, like, you don't have to be hide your nerd fandoms away anymore. You can bring them out into the open, even though it's quite cool in society with all the Big Bang Theories and Marvel, DC movies and TV series coming out. It's still a little bit hidden. There's not a lot of role-playing games and fantasy Dungeons and Dragons-esque things being brought to the light. It's all just that sort of surface comicdom where people who are normal can have a bit of a play around in the kiddies end of the shallow pool of nerd fandom and pretend that they're actually impressive and cool by having this little quirky tidbit to their personality. You're being cool just like everybody else. I am an individual, I'm not. Refer Monty Python. I read once somewhere that we actually live in a pretty good world, ignoring all the various furors, coups, wars and other circumstances going on in other countries and riots, etc. Our death rate from those things has fallen dramatically. It's just that we hear about them all a lot more because of internet and world media. Because of that, we think the world is more violent when it's actually a lot safer, technically. I'm sure anyone who's gone through a personal tragedy involving an act of violence, such as myself, I'll move on, but involved my father, there may be a little bit, no, it's more violent. But I think that the society in general is better than it has been. That being said, is society growing darker? Insofar as referring to how we enjoy our popular culture and recreational activities, I'd have to say probably yes. It really has, I think, grown darker in the last few decades. Case in point, TV shows. Looking at all the extremely popular ones, usually produced by HBO, and I have nothing against HBO, they're great series and really good storytelling. But Dexter, Game of Thrones, Mad Men, what was that Western one? Deadwood, Carnivale. Plethora of actual TV series have come and gone on television, and they're all really quite dark. A lot of violence, even if it was legitimately set in the correct time period. A lot of swearing, again, even if it was set in the correct time period. And sex, we're pretty close to blurring the line between pornography and general entertainment at this point. But all of that is in some of the most popular shows. The other popular shows that you get are cop shows, murder investigations, etc., etc. You don't really get a lot of good comedy these days, specifically. But that being said, there's a lot of good comedy out there. The thing that I think shows that society has grown darker is that some of the shows that were in the 70s and 80s, there's no way they could survive on television these days. Stories about it was Stairway to Heaven, I think it was, with the feel-good angel protecting people, ignoring the Christian undertones about heaven and all the religious ramifications. Quite frankly, religions have gotten a bit ridiculous too. The pretense for all religions, whether you believe there's a God or an Allah or what have you, I personally think there's definitely something beyond this world. What that power is, I don't know. But basically it should be good, don't be an asshole, the end. And protecting or defending that with killing other people or injuring other people who want to believe something different is ridiculous. There's nothing in any religious writings that say that's a good thing. But we'll move on, that's a topic for another story. Some of those cheesy old shows from the 70s and 80s, The Love Boat, Heart to Heart, Remington Steele, Moonlighting, those even if they were a little bit tongue-in-cheek, they were a bit more romantic comedy, or just general feel-good TV. Happy stories, people were happy. The Brady Bunch, Partridge Family, all those general shows where people are not doing anything crazy, but just being nice to each other and having happy endings. That doesn't work anymore. You can't do that sort of television. It has to be, for some bizarre reason, dark, gritty, realistic, or shitty reality TV, and we'll move on from that because that's just terrible television. Society doesn't really want to look at the happy endings anymore. They'd have a happy ending at the end of the dark, gritty bit, watching the murder investigation, have the bad guy get caught, or killed, or whatever. And sometimes they don't. Like it's a real life thing. The court system lets bad people go sometimes. I think that says a lot, because only a darker society would not be able to take hold of and enjoy a feel-good show where nothing bad happens and it was just general happy, feely situations. They didn't have to have a resolution. They didn't have to have, a moral to it, even sometimes, depending on who it was or what show it was. It's just, I think sadly these days society has gone a little bit darker, and it's a shame. We need to reach back and pull that light back into our everyday existence and our entertainment values. Well, that's that for me. Now the next question, the question for episode 3 for Ray, that will be, what inspires you? Specifically, I suppose, what inspires you to create? Can be a who, can be a what, but I think that's a decent question. Now, as always, please subscribe, feel free to follow us. Comments are welcome down the bottom, but please no trolling. Nobody likes a troll. See you in the next episode.